Let's go. Hey, I'm really looking forward to today's class. We're going to talk about what I think are some really interesting pieces. And here we go. What I want to do in today's class is bring together genetics and sociology and kind of give you just a little bit of an overview, right? Remember, I'm a generalist, so I know a little bit about lots and lots of things, just enough to kind of get me into trouble if I say too much. So I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to give you a vision for how to really put these two things together in a way that I think not only makes sense, but has value. And we're going to start right here with evolution, because I need to just say a quick thing about this. Because I recognize that there are probably a lot of you in the room, and maybe more who are watching on the live stream, who consider yourselves to be creationists. So therefore, you have this idea that, evolution is a bunch of bunk or whatever, because clearly we didn't evolve from apes, or, whatever the story is, right, that you have. And here's what I want to say about that. First off, we don't know what the source of life is. Like, we really don't. And we don't, I love the picture on the left of, kind of God touching the finger of Adam and breathing life into Adam. That's a story, right? And we don't know how or what life is. We don't know what consciousness is. We just don't know. And nobody knows. And you can't know. You can think you know. You can believe it by faith. Or you can, read some book like a Bible or the Torah or the Quran, or, whatever you want to do. But these are ideas. These aren't facts. These are ideas that you believe by faith. They're not facts that you can test against other facts and against other things. It's ideas you believe by faith. And faith is good. Faith is really, really important. And if you have faith, that's a really wonderful thing. And I wouldn't ever want to pull that away from somebody. But right now, I just want to talk about some things that we do know. And what we do know about evolution, and most people who believe in a creationist model, don't study evolution because they haven't done a lot of research in it. Like a lot of research, like really reading the story and just trying to discover what we know. And I'm going to tell you, we know a lot. We have an immensely interesting, valuable, and testable story about the process by which life evolved and changed and adapted over time. And it's pretty convincing if you follow the scientific method. Is it changing? Yes, it's changing all the time, especially recently with all of the way we've delved into genetics, and our genetics work is telling a very different story. I mean, not a very different story, but it's adding lots of new data into the story. It's kind of like climate change. Every year we're learning more and more and more because we've started to really look at these things. So that is the same here. So there's no reason you can't take creationism and evolution and put them together, because in the end, even if you're an evolutionist, where'd life come from? You know what I mean? And if you could say, where's it from? Like, where did it start? Like, what is it? Like, what combination of chemicals or something? But then, if you believe in God, where'd God come from? So, it's this thing that you could spin around and around. For me, I don't bother with it at all. I know that there's a story of science that's really fascinating, and the more of it that I read, the more I think, wow, this is really, really amazing. And I'm a skeptic, but nonetheless, the story of evolution is pretty cool. I'm not going to tell the story now. If I had more time, I would tell you a story about how I accidentally converted to Islam and why the need to I couldn't believe in creationism, so I couldn't, according to. I'll tell you later. It's really fascinating. But I also want to point this out. Look, this is a typical sort of photo that we use to depict evolution. And if you notice this photo, look who's the most evolved being. It's a white person. It's never a black guy with tightly coiled hair and darker skin. First off, it's always a man. But it's never also a dark-skinned person with coiled hair. It's always a white light-skinned person with straighter hair. So no wonder black and brown people would be a little bit reticent to believe in evolution, right? If every image you ever saw of evolution ends up like this, with a white guy as the most evolved person. And we're still using those today. And so that's not the image you want to think about. When you think about evolution and the complexity, don't think of that image. It's not as simple as we evolved from apes, believe me. It's just it's a really complex story, and it's a very cool story. And it matters to today's class a little bit, because we're going to be I want to talk about the issues of the body and the physiology and sociology, okay? And first off, can I just, I don't know, man. Can you stand? Can you stand up really fast? Do you mind? And then can you stand up really fast? Yeah. So the body is, what's your name? Miranda. Yeah. And what's your name? Tatum. So Miranda and Tatum. Do you have them both on the screen? Okay, so look at Miranda and Tatum. The idea when you look at them is that they're very different, and genetically very different, right? Whatever Tatum's genetic admixture is, it's very different than Miranda's genetic admixture. And why not, right? Because you see that. And then if we had, can you stand up really fast? If we had him into the mix, what's your name again? Mauricio. If we have Mauricio into the mix, then look at his genetic admixture compared to Tatum's and compared to Miranda's. The idea is going to be that they're very, very different. But the truth is, they're 99.99% the same. Here, okay, you can sit down for a second, right? Thanks, by the way. That life, in a way, plays a trick on us, because the vast majority of our genes are very similar as human beings, as Homo sapiens, right? But only 0.01% reflect our external differences, whatever those are. So, when we're going around trying to understand things like sociological inequality based on our genetics, or, any number of things, IQ based on our genetics, based on genetics, the mean or median genetic phenotypes of particular racial groups, let's say. We're talking, people are 99.99% the same. We're not talking about very many genes. So, what is the connection between the gene for a certain type of nose, or a certain texture of hair, or a certain color of skin? What does it have to do with the complexities of consciousness, right? So remember that when you see people, regardless of how differently they look, we are essentially the same genetically speaking. And you see, we really want to start there. And there are some differences that matter, like in terms of disease and all sorts of things that happen to us, right, that make certain populations more or less susceptible to some things. But we really want to go there. And the idea with evolution is that along the way, two people pass their genes on to a child. And that child gets genes from the mother and the father, but it's not a perfect coming together. It's not a perfect mixture of those two genes. And sometimes there are hang on, I'm trying to think about how I want to say this. So it's not a perfect, sometimes there are mutations. Sometimes things happen, right? Maybe I have this little kind of clip right in my ear. It's this thing right here. And I'm like, where did that come from? Why do I have that? Neither of my parents had it, right? And it seems very unimportant, right? It's not related to anything. I could maybe, if I had a child, I could maybe pass it on to my child. If I had 10 children, maybe I would pass it on. If I had 100 children, maybe I would pass it on. Maybe I wouldn't. But the idea is that maybe it's just a mutation. Maybe it's just an accident. And somehow, this kind of admixture of my mother's genes and my father's genes, and they all came together and they create me. And sometimes there's this kind of mutation thing. This thing that just happens. It's an accident. But maybe this thing will play on. Maybe it's really dominant, and maybe for whatever reason, it's just, if I had 100 children, all 100 of those children would have this little thing in my ear. If I had 1,000 children, all 1,000 of them would have it. And then they would pass it on, and it would get passed on, and all sorts of things would happen. Or maybe it would be adaptive for a particular area of the world. And so I would be in a cold climate or a warm climate or some kind of climate where this thing would be beneficial because it would do something really positive for me, allow me to survive in a way that if I didn't have it, I'd be more likely to survive, okay? You got to adapt to the environment in some way. So I'm going to give you lots of examples of this, but this is essentially how this stuff works. Now, sometimes, by the way, it's just sexual preference. Genes carry over because, there's certain features of certain groups because it was just preferred sexually. It was just seen as attractive or seen as a good thing. Sometimes it's adaptive. Sometimes it's lots of things. All right, so here's the best we know. And again, I'm just giving you the background. The best we know is that human beings kind of first started walking upright and somewhere in Eastern Central Africa, right? And we start seeing this process happening. We're learning more because the more we learn, the more we use genetics as opposed to just fossils, the more we're actually finding some really interesting stories. But this is essentially the stories. Human beings come out of Africa. What was that? Oh, all right. Listen, man. Hang on. So sometimes, people start going to different areas of Africa. The more, as you move around, you encounter different climates. Cooler climates, warmer climates, more moist climates, drier climates, different kinds of foods that provide certain kinds of nutrition. Different ways, lots of different situations that are incredibly difficult to all pinpoint. But what we see is, as people move around, the body is not only adapting to just random genetic mutations, but the body is the bodies that are healthy and that they thrive and they pass their genes on are bodies that are often most adaptive to particular climates. And then these humans traveled over Western Asia and around down in here, right? And when we get down here, we have, for example, the Negrito people. So if you go, Negrito people would look at, if you take any average black person in this class, person of sub-Saharan African ancestry in this class, these would be the Negrito people down here. You can just Google them on your phone, right? And so how is that? Well, because for whatever reason, as the process moved along and people migrated, for some reason, certain body features of this particular clan, this particular group of people just sustained itself. And so we still see it. And then people came up into Asia, right? And then they traveled across the Bering Strait. And I'll come back to that. But this is the idea. As people moved around, bodies changed. And they changed because people met other groups of people, and then the different admixtures came together and produced different physical features, and they changed because the body was adapting to the environment around. Okay, cool? It's pretty simple. That's a very different story than there is a God who came out of somewhere, I have no idea where, and the God decided to create all life on earth. And then for whatever reason, God decided to play games with us, and God decided to make people look really different physically. And just like, I don't know, let's just have fun with these humans, and we'll have some have different eyes and different skin color and different hair texture and so on and so forth. That's a story too. It's fine to believe in that story. That's not the one I believe in. But if you believe in it, good for you. Recognize that you believe in it on faith, not on fact. That's a different story, right? So, because remember, a holy text is not fact. Holy texts are words to point you toward the divine, that point you toward the mystery of life itself. That's what religion is. And that's a very different thing. It's a cool thing. It's an important thing, but it's not science. All right, Mom. So, there's a new thing that's happening. And it's called biogeographical DNA ancestry testing. And basically what happened is this. People started to isolate genes in particular regions of the world. And so they pick certain areas, they find people who, as best as you can imagine, whose ancestors lived in that region for thousands of years, for as long as you can possibly remember, as long as you can get, right? You want to go back as far as you can go. And then we try to isolate genes in those people that are unique to that particular population of people. Okay? So now imagine that we can do that all over the world. And we find genes. And we don't find a lot, but we find certain, we look at the admixture and certain genes pop out, and then we can isolate them and see them, right? And that means that if we studied the genetic admixture of a particular person, we can study the percent, we can study this sector of genes, right? This makeup, and see what percent of those genetic codes you have from those areas of the world. And then we can have a sense of what your ancestry is. Not what your race is, but what your ancestry is. And by ancestry, I mean, like, what part of the world, the geographic location your ancestors came from. Yo, man. It's actually really cool. Because you can learn something about yourself that's, like, really, really interesting. And by the way, a lot of these companies have like half-price sales for like $50. You can learn this information about yourself. So as the semester goes on, when there is a big sale, I'll send it out to the class, right? So look, here's mine. This is from one of the companies, right? So I'm 58.7, and this is going to change, right? This changes slowly over time because, we really begin to understand, isolate different genes and the coding and the mapping, so it can change. But mostly, here's where I'm about 59% British and Irish. So this part of the world right here, okay? 59%. I'm 21% French and German. Okay? Meaning that if you trace my ancestry back, you can see that as far back as we're able to go, my oldest ancestors that we can isolate and we can see came from the British Isles, which back then wouldn't have even been Ireland or Britain, right? Or the area that is Germany and France. 1.1% of me is sub-Saharan African. So, like, who knows where that is, right? But that's like, I guess I have like a race card. I have like a 1% race card, right? And which isn't very big. And 0.7% is East Asian. So it's like, all right, so, what is that? It's not particularly uncommon, right? Certainly here in the United States, because we have people coming together from all over the world. I'm going to continue to talk about this, right? But it's a fascinating sort of array of like, okay, who is this person, Sam Richards? Now, what this does is it takes our understanding of race and race relations and has us turn it inside out. Because, for example, we talk about race in like a class like this. We talk about, white. What are the various racial groups? Like white people, black people, Asian people, Native American people. We talk about Latinos, Hispanics, often as a separate racial group, which is not, but I'll come back to that, right? And so it's like, look, we have this idea that there are a certain number of races, but in fact, looked at from an understanding of the world, there's no set number of races because there's nothing that allows us. So imagine this is the global map. There's nothing that allows us to make a fine distinction between people who are, say, like Asian, people who are African, people who are European, people who are North American, people who are South American. There's no, what's the fine distinction? There's nothing, right? What's the distinction between Asia and Europe? Right in here. Like when you leave Europe and you start traveling toward Asia, and when do you leave Europe and you suddenly are no longer European and you're now Asian? So who's European and who's Asian? And the people who live in this entire region here, are they Asian or are they European? And then, when you start traveling down to this, when you get to India, the subcontinent of India, where does the subcontinent of India start? It's not at the border. The border is a new thing. When you think about when you think about ancestry and race relations, don't think about borders. Borders are mostly all new anyway. Think about the fact that, is there a way that you can draw circles around regions of the earth where all those people share something in common, some genetic admixture in common, that they all look alike, their genes are very similar? No, there are a few genes that we share. There are a few genes that may be markers that may be unique to a particular population. I talked about the negritos down here. Maybe there's a couple markers that are really unique to them and nobody else, but that's really about it. And so, again, the first thing to start is, how does this stuff happen? Secondly, what are the racial groups we're talking about? And how are we misspeaking all the time when we're talking about racial groups? Like white people. Who are the white people? So again, I'm going to go through this, right? All right, so let's do, by the way, where's Frost? Are you here? Well, we don't need Frost, man. What's that? Oh, he's homesick? All right, dude. Could we have a volunteer of Asian ancestry? Anybody? Bro. Do you want to volunteer? All right. Okay, so listen. And I need someone who's European. Wait, are you European? Where are you from? Where do you think you're from? Polish and Irish? Can you volunteer? All right, here. So, by the way, what's your name?
Manolin.
What is it?
Manolin.
Mandolin?
Manolin.
Manolin.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where's your ancestry from?
I'm Filipino.
Filipino?
Yeah.
All right. And
I'm Emmy.
Emmy?
Yes.
What's your ancestry?
Polish and Irish.
Hey, that's my wife's ancestry.
Aw,
Yeah? Who's Irish, your mom or your dad?
my mom.
Does she clean a lot?
No.
No, she doesn't?
No.
I mean, wait, she's Polish or Irish?
No,
Polish?
she's Irish.
Oh,
My
she's
dad's
Irish?
Polish, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, Irish don't clean. Polish clean. Does dad clean a lot?
Yeah, my dad cleans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. You're not Polish, man. You want to live, listen, my friends, if you need a college roommate, find someone who's Polish. All they do is clean, man. They just clean. It's just a thing, right? Okay, so here.
Or Virgos.
So let's do this. By the way, I'm going to make I want to make a statement before we do this, okay? Everybody listen. And on the live stream, listen, man. It's okay to talk about differences in our physical features. It is not racist to point out differences in our physical features. So look at Manolin and look at Emmy. Can you turn your hat around? Just turn it around.
I look like a boy if I do that.
You look like a boy?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. All right, well, that's all right. Just pull it up a little bit so we can see your eyes. Okay. Look at Manolin and look at Emmy. They have different physical features, right? You can tell that Manolin is not Polish and Irish, unless, you moved there or, you were adopted there or something. But we know that your ancestry is not Polish and Irish. It's not, listen up. It's not racist of me to point this out. Okay, we're going to start there. So let's be really clear. It's all good. This is what I do. I'm a professional sociologist. I focus on physical features because that's what we do, and we all do. It's just that we're going to do this in a way that is kind of cool. Have you ever wondered where the epicanthic, your eyes? Do you ever look at your eyes? What do you think about your eyes? They're cool.
I think they're really round. I don't think, so obviously Asians have this stereotype that they have small eyes or squinty eyes. I mean, I don't think I got squinty eyes.
Squinty eyes?
Yeah.
Is that what people say?
Yeah.
Hold the mic close.
Yeah, usually my friends make fun of my eyes.
Yeah. What is different about you? Look at her eyes. What's different about your eyes than her eyes?
I have this flap in between. So what I noticed is that people's eyes go straight down, but I have this piece of skin.
Can you see that? Show her. Can you see
I
that?
have this piece of skin that goes over the corner.
Can you, and can the camera?
Okay, I'm
can
gonna
you,
zoom in.
Can you focus in?
Oh
no,
my
I want
God.
the class to see it. This is awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
So get
I
as
don't know if
close,
you'll be able
as
to
tight as
see.
you can. All right, point it out to the
Okay,
home viewing
so
audience.
I have this like flap. oh my god. So
It's not a flap, by the way. We call it a fold. We
yeah,
call it a
okay.
fold.
So like if you look at somebody else's eyes, their eyes
Here,
like
come
go.
here. We're
yeah.
gonna look at hers.
Okay. so I'm not
Look
alone.
at, okay, look at her,
So
Emmy's
you
eyes.
see
No, look
how,
at
like-
Emmy's eyes.
You see
Okay.
how her
Oh,
eyes.
hang on. I'm afraid. You guys just gotta give. We gotta get some light.
Really bad hair day.
No. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Hang on. Turn your head this way. Hang on. We'll get it. Okay. There we go. I just got to get the shadow out. Oh, your hair is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So you don't. No, you're cool. No, but you don't have the. She doesn't have the
She
fold.
doesn't have the flap. Yeah.
Right?
So like you see how her eyes kind of go straight down. I have this fold of skin that goes over the corner. So like I'm more susceptible to have like eye boogers. Like,
Oh, yeah?
but like it's weird. Only me and my brother have it in my family.
Okay.
But yeah, but I noticed that in a lot of other Filipinos. I've never really typically seen it in other races.
Do you know what it's called?
No.
It's called an epicanthic eye fold.
Oh,
Right? Do you know its purpose?
no.
Do you know its purpose? Yeah, we don't really know the purpose. So there's people. I was hoping you did because I don't know. It's because a lot of the idea is like, well, where it's really dusty and windy, what happens is there's a fold in the eye and it pulls the eye closed so that people don't get dust in their eyes in those regions. But that's not it. But that's a cool story if that was true. Like you clearly, your ancestors did not evolve in a climate that was dusty and windy, and so therefore you don't have it. But that's not the story. As actually best that we can imagine is that it's some sort of genetic mutation. And for whatever reason, it's a mutation that really moved forward in different populations. Because are there any Central Africans here who have an epicanthic eye fold? Because it's actually fairly common in Africa and Central Africa too. It's not, we see this, right? So, or Southern Africa in particular. Like in Namibia, we see populations of people. But in any case, you have this fold, and all it does, it's like what you say, it sort of pulls the eye. Can I just touch your eye? You touch your eye, right? Can I? No, I won't touch your eye. But listen, it pulls. Yeah, exactly. It does exactly that. So the fold pulls the eyelid. It's going to pull it a little closed, and it looks like the so-called slanty eye thing, right? But it's not. But it's not. Are her eyes the shape of her eyeballs? Are they different than yours? Do you think?
I don't think so.
Do you think they are?
I don't really know. I don't remember what they look like right now. Compared.
Yeah, you'd have to take them out and look at them. Yeah, no, they're the same, right? It's exactly the same. But here's one thing that we do see. Oh, dang. I'm not going to be able to do this with you because I got to take your hat off, man. Can you just stay up here? Can I just get somebody? Dude, you. Hang on, not you. Let me find. Hang on. Bro, you're perfect. Yeah, come on. Is that okay? You good? All right, so listen. One thing we see with people of a certain Asian ancestors, just have a seat for 1 second, I'll get is a more of a pronounced brow bone. So here, turn around, sideways, look at Emmy, right? Emmy. Yeah, so notice how, right here, there's more of a straight line. The eye is more in relation to the forehead. That's the brow bone, okay? You see that? That's fairly common among people of Asian ancestry. Bro, watch this. Bro, what's your name? Cole? Look at Cole. Turn sideways. Look at his. Can you guys see? Look right here. See see how his eyes are back compared to Manolyn's? That's more common. I call that the criminal forehead kind of thing, But I kind of have. Well, you can see mine is like that too. Like my forehead goes out and then my eyes are back. Yours are much more less pronounced like that. So we tend to see what appears to be a flatter face, but it's only that one particular part of the face. Yours as well, you don't have that. So that's a different thing. Also, bro, noses. Let's just do noses while we're here, right? So look at Emmy's nose and look at the bridge of her nose. Here, you're good. Are you okay? Are you good?
Yeah.
Dudes. Hey, you're a little nervous. What's because
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, yeah. Hey, by the way, can I just say this again? If you happen to be, I'm saying this because last semester, people had this idea, when I did this class, people had this idea that I'm like really racist because I'm pointing this stuff out. And I'm like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not racist. You're racist for thinking it's racist. You know what I mean? I'm just pointing stuff out. Like, this is just natural. It's racist when we take Emmy and we say, oh, her eyes are more beautiful than Madeline's eyes. Or, wait, what is it again? Cole. Or Cole's eyes, right? Or Cole's nose is more beautiful than Madeline's nose or Emmy's nose. Then we start to get into a different world of hurt, so to speak, right? But right now, all we're doing is picking things out. Like, so look at Madeline's nose and look at how. Do you like your nose? You have an awesome nose. What?
Usually, like, you can differentiate Filipinos from other Asians because of our noses.
Yeah.
So,
What do you see?
it's really like, I kind of lack the bridge, and it kind of
bridge.
just looks like a little tomato to me.
Do you have friends? Wait, you
That's what
kind of.
my
What was
friends
the last
told
thing
me.
you said?
My friends told me I have a tomato nose.
A tomato nose.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, but that's what they say, like a
Wait.
tomato button nose.
Yeah. Well, your dad said that.
Yeah, him too. A lot of people say that.
I wouldn't say that. Would you say that, bro? No. All right. Listen. Do you know how many people you know that have gotten nose jobs? 8, like Asian. Do you know people have gotten nose jobs? So the nose job, because many people who are Asian, check this out, Emmy, right? Many people who are Asian have this sense of like, well, we don't have really pretty noses. We don't like our noses because we don't have the bridge. Like Emmy's bridge, like Cole's bridge, the bridge right here, right? Look at my bridge. I broke my nose playing football and I shattered it right there. I don't know if you can see, but it's really flat on there. And so, but nonetheless, I have a pronounced bridge. You have a less pronounced bridge. Not do you haven't. Dude, first off, you haven't. You have. We all have. All 4 of us have awesome noses, because they're the noses we got from our ancestors. So they're perfect noses. Anyway, what happens is people get the nose job to build up the bridge of the nose, so that your nose would look a little bit more like hers. Because when people have this idea that beauty, there are certain beauty standards, and the beauty standards, of course, are going to more be the white or European beauty standards. And so you want to build that up, right? You never hear white people with a bridge on their nose, like Emmy's nose. You would never hear somebody like Emmy say, oh, you know what? I'm going to like knock this, I want to get a nose job because I want to really have to get rid of half of the bridge of my nose so it's much more flatter, say, like Madeline's nose. Right? Maybe you want a nose job because you think you have a really large nose and you want to build it back. But you never hear white people saying like, "Oh, you know what? I want to have a nose so that the bridge of my nose is really, really flat." That's where this I hesitate to call it racist, but it is sort of racist. It's like this is like the white supremacy thing. So I haven't used that word in this class, but that's like a white supremacy thing, right? That people of your background would want to be more like you, right? What's your ancestry, by the way, bro?
Irish and Austrian Hungarian.
Irish and Austrian Hungarian?
Yeah.
All right, man. Dude, awesome. You have a cool nose, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, hang on. So, okay. So there's the bridge story. So do you know why his nose is the size that it is compared to? Yeah, it's larger than Emmy's nose. It's larger than your nose. Do you have any idea why? It's not especially large.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Does anyone know why? You have an idea here? We don't know this. We only have theories, right? Because you're looking backwards. And so the theory is that as people moved to cooler climates, which means if you go back to that map, moving more to the north, which is what you evolved from. And your ancestors are people who had moved to the north, right? Like me, right? And so, are we good? You're still good, right? You're getting less nervous? Dude, you're awesome, man. You're good? All right. So, as we did, it actually made sense that instead of a nose like Madeline's nose, which is shorter and flatter, that you have a nose more like Cole's nose. And bro, turn to the side here. Can you focus in on Cole's nose a little bit? Again, it's like, dude, you have an awesome nose. You're perfect. Like, life is amazing, right? So, but what happens is when you move to colder climates, you ever been outside on a really cold day and you go like, and it hurts? Like you really feel the pain?
Yes.
Okay. That you can't have that, right, when you're in cold climates. And so we think that the nose may have evolved, and we see this because the further north we go, in the colder climates there are, the longer the nose is, and the more pronounced the bridge, the larger the nose, right? So the idea is that it adapted, your nose, my nose, or whatever, adapted to these colder climates because it cools, or warms the air and moistens the air in these cold, arid climates. So your nose is better adapted to that. Yours is not, right? So if you go to a really, really cold climate, it just puts it puts like strain on your lungs and so on, right? So that's an idea. We don't know that for certain, but we have that idea, and it seems to make sense. But you notice difference with Filipinos? Like you can tell difference in their nose or their eyes? Because I don't see that.
I mean, it's just like it's just like one of those things. If you're Filipino, you can tell.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
I have not seen that. I mean, I pay attention to Asian features a lot, right? So, like, I'm really always trying to distinguish. But, dude, I'm crazy. Like, I'll see somebody, I'll be in some random place, and I'll just see someone and be like, dude, let me see your nose. Like, hang on, turn to the side. They don't even know me. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I study faces. Like, I'm really focused on faces. Like, it's all good. But, wow, dude, that's cool, man. Like, okay, what's your ancestry? But I forget to say what I do first, and sometimes it throws people, but it's all good, right? It's fun. I mean, it's fun because it is. It's what it is. All right. Lip. What about lips? So you're Polish and Irish. Hang on, let me see your. What do you think about your lips?
One of them's thinner than the other.
Which one's thinner?
My top lip.
Dude,
My bottom
can we
lip's
see that? You have lips like my wife, Polish and Irish. You have a mouth very much like my wife, who you will meet at some, like your top. Look at, no. Hang on, turn to the side. Look at you. Hey, are we cool with you? Can we talk about your lips?
No, we're good. We're good.
We're all right. We're still good. All right, hang on, man. Hang on, dude. Right. Hey, wait. Hang on a sec. Is Lori watching? By the way. Hey, hang on. Hold on a second. Lori, if you're watching, am I right? Does her mouth, does those not look like your lips, right? All right. So look, the idea is to your top lip.
My top lip's thinner than.
No, hang on. Talk. No, listen to Ellie.
I don't know. My top lip is thinner than my bottom lip. Like
It
I don't
is.
know. It is. Yeah.
And listen, for me, I think it's an Irish thing. But then it could be I haven't been able to figure out, because I've spent a lot of time in Ireland, and a lot of time in Poland, and I see this, I've seen this a fair amount. But yeah, like my wife, her top lip is even,
I don't know where to look.
no, just
Okay.
look straight ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Her top lip even more so, like there's even less of the lip that's showing, right? So do you know why you see more lips? Because I look around the room and I see people with different lip sizes. Do you know why that is? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea? So listen, we don't know. It could be sexual selection, that in some areas of the world, larger lips were really preferred sexually. It could be because there's a moistening quality. The larger the lip surface, the more moistening happens in the body, right? You sort of can, so it could be any number of things. Like we don't really know, but it could be, there are theories out there on that. So, and in the Asian community, we see certain Asian communities with much larger lips, and then others with much thinner lips. So it's cool. This is what it is, y'all. You just focus on this stuff. It's okay. Anything you want to say, bro? Thanks, man. We good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else you want to say? We good? Ellie, anything else? No, I'm good. Wait, did I totally embarrass you? No. Oh, you're good? All right, man. Okay. Hey, thanks. Hey, can we give a hand to them? All right. What's that? Oh, she is watching. What'd she say? Am I right? Oh, yeah. All right. All right. Here we go. Let's do that. Hey, here's one, right? So we see differences in ears. In fact, the thing on our, you know how we all have different fingerprints? Like everybody has a different fingerprint. It seems to be that everybody might have a different ear print also. It's just that we never pay attention. Like at some point when you're with a bunch of your friends, you can't really do it in here, but line up a bunch of your friends, just like 4 or 5 people in a row, and just look at their ears. Look at, well, you don't have to do it. I did it right there. There, you got, lined up 24 people. Amazing differences in ears. Everybody has different ears. And some people have much larger ears on average. You have much small on average. So we see, where's your ancestry from? Dude, can you stand up really fast? Are we good? Yeah. What's your name again?
Michael.
This is Michael. Yo, check it out. Michael. Look at so your ancestry is from Malawi?
Malawi.
Dude, look at Michael's ears. Look at his ears compared to my ears, right? Hang on. Dude, we're going to get really close. No, back up just a little. Okay, you and I. Wait. Do it this way. All right, here we go. Look at check this out. Look at, so first off, let me say the following. We see this among certain Central Africans. We'll see, first off, there's no normal ear size. There's no normal nose size. There's no normal anything. There's no normal in any of this. Listen to this. There's nothing that is inherently more beautiful or less beautiful than something. In terms of body features, there is no body feature that is inherently more or less beautiful. It's all just social construction and determination. There's probably a universal average of people. And then in that average, there are people who go above the average and below the average, and some people much above the average and much below the average. But that's all there is. So in Africa, we see there's certain groups of people that have below the average ear size. So if we look at Michael's ear, and then here, compare it, just look me in the eyes, my friend, and compare his ear to my ear, just on average size. And mine's probably a little larger. And maybe because I'm aging as well, maybe it tends to get a little bit larger than average. But, yours is a little bit smaller than average. Mine's a little bit larger than average. And so in your family, are there ear sizes?
I was born premature as well, so that might be a developmental thing. I don't know.
Not.
But no, I think my family has relatively normal-sized ears.
So we see this, though, a lot. Not a lot, but we see it, so... But anyway, you just look at our ear. Like if we go around the room and we do the ear thing, we're going to have lots and lots of different ear sizes. So why is that? I don't know, man. It just is, right? Genetic mutation, like any number of things. But it's cool. It's fine. Awesome. Dude, hang on. Normal size ears, though, when you said that, you even got to be like, just be careful of that. Like, hang on. Listen up. You said your family has normal size ears. Can you say that again?
My family has normal-sized ears.
Dude, okay. I never used the word normal.
Average?
Yeah, more or less. I can use average, but if I'm only talking in some kind of a science way, if I'm talking in a way of like, I'm sitting around with you, you're my friend, right? And we're in like, whatever. And I'm like, dude, your ear, da, da, da. Like, we're gonna play, right? If we're like 18 years old, we're gonna have joke. You're gonna joke about my nose. I'll joke. We find things to joke about, right? But the fact is, everything that we identify as normal and good and bad and more beautiful and less beautiful is just a social construction. That's all it is. So it doesn't really matter. All right, thanks, bro. All right.
Yeah, and that was your wife's message, by the way, was pretty much just talking about how when we describe features as European versus like the epicantic eyefold, we can't talk as one being a manipulation of the other, because we don't know what came first or what the adaptation was throughout time. So
yes, exactly. Yep, exactly, man. And the thing is, here in the United, if we go to when I'm in Europe or I'm in Africa or I'm in Asia or I'm in different communities, the norm is very different than the norm would be, say, here in the United States, right? The quote-unquote, whatever the norm is, it just changes, right? And that's okay. I mean, that's the nature of it. So be careful about locating ourselves in one particular place and thinking that where we are is what the norm is all over the world, because that's not the case. So here, let's do skin color. So, here's another one, right? Like skin color is, so take a look at this map. So we have a much better understanding of how it is that human beings came to have different skin pigmentations. So, again, We see, now this isn't inherently the darkest skin. Mostly these days, the darkest skin we see in the world is over here. But this is where human beings first really started to emerge, came into our own, with very dark skin. And the dark skin is, from a pigmentation called melanin, and melanin just happens to have this other adaptive characteristics that darkens the skin. And the way it works, it's actually fairly simple, right? You need a certain amount of UV from the sun, because UV allows us to produce vitamin D, allows us to synthesize folic acid, and make calcium, and all the things we need to be strong and healthy and all of these things, right? So you got to get UV, but you can't get too much UV because we don't have body hair anymore. So you got to protect ourselves because too much UV causes skin cancer. Skin cancer is not a new thing, my friends. Skin cancer has been around forever and ever and ever. So the body has adapted. So one way it adapts is to produce more melanin, which means there's a natural protectorant from the UV rays of the sun. As people move north and move south, they needed less melanin. In fact, the skin really benefited by lightening, by producing less of the melanin, because the skin needed more of the UV in the sun to create vitamin D, calcium, folic acid, and all of the things that are necessary for a healthy body. So when we move, what we see is populations of people who evolved in the northern latitudes or way in the southern latitudes, we see that one of the adaptations was a lightening of the skin, meaning that if you go to the north and you have really dark skin, and you, in the winter times, in these cold months, you don't get enough UV. Your body isn't really producing the kinds of vitamin D and calcium and so on that it really needs to thrive. Which is, by the way, it's quite fascinating that in these northern climates, like here, in some ways, in a place like Penn State, we don't talk to people who are darkly pigmented about the importance of making sure in the winter months you get enough sunlight, because you really need that for your healthy body. We talk to white people about not getting, light-skinned people about don't get too much sun in the summertime because you get skin cancer. But there's another message for darker, more darkly pigmented people, which is in the wintertime, when it's really cold, make sure you get as much sun as you possibly can. So like on a sunny day, like a couple days, like yesterday, make sure you get out. We haven't had sun at all year long. Make sure you get out and get some sun in your body, right? That's important. So we see that skin, if you have really more darkly pigmented skin or more lightly pigmented skin, all it does is tell us about your ancestors and where they were. And this is the nature of, we're always trying to change things up, but we're not looking back at our ancestors to see that. So this we know, right? We sort of see this across the world. And then this is part of the story of evolution. Unless, again, let me go back to the creation thing. And again, let me be really clear. It's less probably in here, because less of you, because you're in college and you're less likely to be like kind of hardcore creationists. But you would have to believe that God, the Creator, actually put us on earth in ways that mimicked this kind of thing. It doesn't make sense. We see the story. The science makes a lot of sense. So, is that cool? You got that? So it's like when I see dark or light skin or skin, any skin in between, this is the map. I'm always thinking about this map and thinking like, awesome. If my ancestors had in the northern latitude, well, they wouldn't never have had really dark skin. They wouldn't have survived. The ones that didn't survive. So that's where my skin comes. Okay, so how does this matter, right? Look, first off, number one, just the whole sociology of race thing and thinking that there are these really discrete and distinct racial categories and racial groups and that we can know something about people of those groups. It's just problematic sociologically. But in the world of genetics, which I'll say it later. So watch this. Here's a map of the slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, right? So we have this idea, we talk about African Americans. First off, Africa. Africa is the most genetically diverse continent on Earth. Of course, that's where human beings have been the longest, so it's the most genetically diverse. Africans, there are light-skinned Africans and dark-skinned Africans, and Africans with straight hair and tightly coiled hair, and loosely coiled hair, and with larger than average noses and smaller than average noses, who are really tall and really short and really wide and really thin, and like all sorts of genetic differences all over this continent of Africa. It is a massive, massive continent. The slave trade brought Africans here from very small regions of Africa. So when we talk about those of you who identify as African Americans, look, far be it from me to tell you how to identify, but technically you're not African Americans. You're West Central African Americans. At best, you could say that. Because, dudes, because your genetic admixture and who you are and what you look like, and if I brought Africans up here from all over, and we've done this in the past, and maybe we will later in the semester, I don't have time now, but if I brought 10 students from Africa up to the front, and you all lined up, you would see these very distinct features of the African students. Nobody looks alike. But what we see is with the slave trade, meaning Africans that came to South America and the Caribbean, which is the vast majority of Africans who were brought to the Americas in the slave trade, and then in North America, all come from particular regions of Africa. Relatively small and isolated regions. So you could say, yeah, I'm African American. Well, really, if you want to kind of get a little bit specific, talk about I'm West Central African American. Because you're not Egyptian American, you're not Algerian American, you're not Tunisian American, you're not from Namibia in South Africa, you're not from Malawi, some people, but most people are not. Right? You're not Sudanese and Ethiopian, some people are, but the vast majority of the African Americans are not. African Americans, well, we use that term mostly, and again, anyone can choose how they want to identify, but mostly we use that term to refer to North Americans, people in the United States who derive their ancestry from slavery. And so, African American, you can define it any way you want, right? But, so here it is. So now we start doing genetic work, right? And we want to understand, we want to sort of see the ways in which genes play out in particular populations. And then we lump all black people together. And we say, okay, hey, we're going to look at, white genes and black genes and Asian genes. And it's like, wait, hang on a second. And then we're just going to focus on black genes. What are we talking about, right? We're going to look at African Americans, and then we're going to compare African Americans to who? Sudanese? People from Somalia over here? Who just are very different genetically, and we may never know because we may not actually study the genetic admixture, but suddenly these things become really important, and they matter, right? So here, let me walk you through, let me show you this one, right? Do you get this? You get it, right? You call yourselves anything you want to call yourselves, but this is what we see. And then, by the way, when we take black Americans, whether it's in South America, Central America, or North America, black Americans who trace their ancestry to slavery, they're most genetically connected to Africans of these particular regions. You see the connection here, right? And they look alike. So if I take Nigerians in here, they're different groups and so on and so forth. But people even most closely resemble people, right? Because it's just like people of Asians or Europeans. White people don't all look alike, my friends. When you go to Europe and you get off an airplane in Poland, you see a particular kind of white person. And then you get back on an airplane and you fly to Germany, or let's say you fly to Ireland. You see white people that look different. And then you get off the airplane and you fly down to Italy, and you start seeing white people that look really different. Then go up to Moscow or St. Petersburg, and then there's that white European look that's like, you're in St. Petersburg. You are not in Ireland. And if you've never done this, you don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. But when you've done it, and so for me, I get off airplanes in lots of parts of the world, and I know where I am just by who I'm seeing on the street. I know, like, if you blindfolded me and didn't even tell me, I'd know I was in Ireland. I couldn't tell you. I could go around the room and find some Irish. I could pick it out. But like, you just know you're Polish, man. You just know you're in Poland, man. You know you are there. So like, white people don't look alike. It's very different, but it's very distinct. And that's true all over the world. It's true in Asia. It's true in Africa. So here, So a buddy of mine, here's what I need. I need someone who's African American who thinks they're like 100% black. They don't have any white blood in them. Do you have white blood in you, by the way? Yeah? Do you not have white blood? Can we use you? Just hop over and then I need someone who identifies as African American but who has maybe at least a grandparent who's white. Okay, who's got a grandparent who's white? Or a parent who's mixed? Mother, father. Dude. Can we use you? You're mixed? Your grandmother's white? Okay, here. Come stand down here. All right. Oh, this is awesome. Dude, this is awesome. Okay, so check this out. I don't have a... Hey, can you bring me a microphone? Thanks, man. All right. We're gonna look in the... come over in the center. We'll use this camera over here. There's more light over here. Actually, come down the front, man. Do you mind? All right, come on, man. What's your name, by the way?
Kayla.
Kayla. And what's your name again, bro?
CJ.
CJ and Kayla. All right. So let me show you how this matters. So CJ, your grandmother, who's white?
Well, my great grandma, but my grandma's like pretty much white.
Yeah. Your great grandma's?
Yeah.
Is white.
Yeah.
And then your grandma
Was like
pretty much white too.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so hang on a second. Who is mixed? Who's white and black? It'd be nice in class, someone who's white and black. Can you volunteer for the class? Yeah. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. And you are, what's your ancestry?
I'm
like?
Haitian. My
You're
mom
Haitian?
and my dad.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you're 100%. Like if we did a DNA test, where are they from? In Haiti?
They're from the capital.
From Port-au-Prince? So if we did a DNA test on you, you're gonna roll 100% Sub-Saharan African. But actually, we say Sub-Saharan, but if I go back, so you're going to be right in here somewhere in the central west coast. And okay, and then what's your name?
Julia.
Julia. And who's white? Who's black?
My mom's Polish Italian and my dad's Jamaican.
Your mom's Polish Italian. Does she clean?
Yes.
I'm telling you, man. Okay, so listen. So here's the deal. Here's why this matters. Why don't you? No, this is good. So look, let's say I'm in the medical world, or it's something where genetics starts to matter in some way, right? And I just say, here's 3 black people who identify as black. And so, or they identify as how do you identify, by the way?
I just combine them all.
What do you say? What do you say? If I say, what are you, what do you say?
Polish Italian mostly.
Yeah. So but racially speaking, do you say mixed?
Yeah, just mixed.
Mixed, and what do you say?
Haitian.
You say Haitian? Yeah, dude, of course. Yeah. And what do you say, bro?
African American or black.
African American? Okay, so now you could say African. There are other people who are mixed who would say African American, right? There are Haitians who would say African American, but either way, right? So we ask, but these are very different people, right? So her genetic admixture, what's your name? Julia, right? Julia's genetic admixture is really different from, Tanya? Kayla. I was close, man. Which is very different than CJ's. Even though, look at Kayla and CJ, they look the same. Like you wouldn't know, right? But he's got all this white admixture in him. And so let's say you're really involved, that it matters somehow, right? His whiteness might really matter. There might be some genetic parts of him that really are going to stand out, who matter even for health issues or whatever, right? So here, look at this. You can turn around. So a buddy of mine did some research to understand how much white blood there is in the African American community. And so they studied the Gullah peoples off the coast of Georgia, on average 3.5% white. Okay? So it's really black. So these would be like Haitians, essentially, right? Very few. But as you start to move away, and you start to move north, and then you start to move west, the percentage of white blood increases because there are fewer black people and there's much more intermarriage. Okay, there are fewer opportunities for finding partners. By the time you get up to Seattle and Portland, on average, black Washingtonians and black Oregonians are 35% white. So like if genetics is what we're looking at and we're really focused on it, like it matters how we distinguish these things, because you all can both say you're black, but you have different genes. You could say you're black. I know many people who are mixed like you, who would have your skin tone and so on, who would still say, oh yeah, I'm black. But you're not black, right? I mean, you are. You can be black. You can be anything you want. If I want to call myself black, whatever, let me call myself black. But the issue is you're not. So, hey, I'm 1%. Come on, man. Give me that. Okay, I'll just whisper it. Like, really, but the idea is that when we're looking at admixture and when we start getting into health and these kinds of things in medicine, and we start doing stuff about maybe we're trying to find cancer cure, and we're doing immunology and cancer and using genetics and so on, these kinds of things will really come into play, and then they matter how we think about these populations. So like the black population is really complex. You know, again, you look at black people up in Portland and Washington and Seattle and so on, it's going to be really different. Yeah. Bro, do you ever talk about your white great-grandmother and stuff? Like what?
Yeah, I credit her for me having good hair.
For being what?
For me having good hair.
For having...
Yeah.
Does he have good hair, though? Does he have good hair? Yeah, of course. You should have seen the face she made when she wasn't looking at you. Yeah, you have awesome hair, my friend. Yeah. And you have awesome hair, too. And you have awesome hair. Yep. Is that your natural color hair?
No, it was pink, but the pink came out.
What's with the pink hair in here, man? Dude, one of your peeps, dog. All right. She's one of yours. All right. Hey, thanks. Thanks for, all right. Thanks, man. Thanks, yeah. All right, so here, let me show you another one, right? So here's another way in which sociology can really kind of get in the way of these things. As best we can imagine, although, listen, man, let me speak on the stream to Afrocentric Africans who are going to give me shit for this. Look, man, we know that the Americas were populated by people crossing over the Bering Strait in Asia and coming down into the Americas. We also know that people may have come, and it appears as though people came from other directions, right? And so people have this idea in the sort of black scholarship world, this idea that Africans actually were the first people to come to the Americas. And there's some evidence of this, right? But it was Africans. It actually may have, in fact, been the Negritos who came over. It's a shorter trip. The trade winds are easier, and it may be that what we see as evidence of Africans is actually evidence of the Negrito people of Asia, who look African American, look just like CJ, but in fact are Asian because they're from New Guinea and the Polynesian Islands and Australia and so on. But in any case, this is the idea that Asians crossed over this street, okay? So now, who's Native American? Who's Native American here? Who do you think? A, B, C, or D? The rest are not. There's 3 of them are not Native American. Only one is. Bro, what do you think, man? C? What do you think, man? C? Go ahead. A. It's actually A. So A are people right here, and all the rest are from this region. Well, what changes them? They probably share the exact same admixture, but one's Asian and one's Native American because they're Eskimo peoples. So here, how about this one? Who's Native American and who's Chinese? Han ancestry. So Han Chinese. One is Han Chinese and one is Navajo. Who do you think? Wait, who's let me ask someone who's Chinese. We'll get an expert in the room. Bro, which one is it, man? You better get this right, my friend. The bottom one is Chinese. Wait, hang on. What do you think, bro? What do you think? What makes you say that?
Because the building, it looks like a Chinese building behind.
Yeah? Dude, have you ever been on a Navajo reservation, my friend?
I mean, she looks Chinese.
She looks Chinese? What about her looks Chinese?
Her teeth, I don't know.
Yeah? No. But Han Chinese, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are lots of ethnic groups in
Yeah,
China. but-
Han is like the majority.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, she is the one who's Chinese. But if you didn't know that, like you wouldn't necessarily know. You just look at them and they're like, oh yeah. So if you took her to China, or you took her to the Navajo reservation, the Navajo would know, and the Chinese would know. You'd probably be like, oh, hang on a second. But nobody else would know. I wouldn't know, you know? And so, look, the thing is, when you're looking at people on the out, we have this idea that there are Asians, the Asian race, the black race, the white race. Like somehow these are distinct and discrete categories, and they actually really fall into one another in fascinating and complex ways. Here, let me show you a different one, right? So remember, here. So, no, hang on, I'm going to go right here. So look, Hispanic or Latino is a sociological category. So everyone who identifies as Hispanic or Latino or Latinx, can you just stand really fast? Everyone who identifies. So, all right, so look at, so are you, where are you from? Panama? And Spain, right? Yeah. So look at the difference. Just look around the room. Dark-skinned people of African ancestry. Bro, where's your family from? Dominican Republic, Panama. These are areas where, so Africans, this is part of the slave trade, right? So these are Africans populating the planet. You're mixed, clearly, right? You have like Puerto Rico and Ecuador. Yeah, you can see that in you, right? And so, but like Indian, hang on, so just look around the room. It's different. So Indian, who has really Indian roots? Like indigenous roots. I really want to, hang on. Stay standing just for a second so I can find some. Bro, dude, can you, okay. You as well. Can you get the camera, do you mind? Is that okay? No. Where are you from? I'm from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico? Yeah, I mean, I can see you. I see like certain, you have European features, but some indigenous features, right? Yeah, Latina. Yeah. All right, hang on. Okay, everybody sit down, bro, except you, right? Yeah. Can you just look at this dude here? You can see. Can you see his? You look straight ahead. I don't know if you can see it, but look at his indigenous features, right? So these are the people. Your people. What's your name again, bro? Justin. Yeah. So Justin. His ancestors were ones that crossed over the Bering Strait, came down into the Americas, and you can see his nose. Dude, hang on. You just have an awesome, do you mind? Yeah, no, see this little bump right there? Boom. See that? Can you get a nice close up? Oh, dude, you have an awesome little bump. Yeah, see that? See that right there? Dude, that's so typical of indigenous peoples in the Americas, right? So as soon as I see you, I'm like, okay, there's your indigenous blood. Thanks, man. But then I look around at others of you who stood up. You're of European ancestry, so the Europeans come in. And so Latin America is a mix of Europeans and Africans and indigenous people. Wait, hang on. Yo. Yo, hang on. Hispanic or Latina, we can talk about the distinctions between them, or Latinx, are not race categories. It's a ethnic or cultural category. So when someone says they're Hispanic, they could be white, they could be black, they could be indigenous. You're a mix of, you're not purely indigenous, you also have white blood in you, right? you may have a little bit of black blood, but probably not, right, in looking at you, right? And so my friend, watch this, get back up for a second. My buddy was doing just research in Mexico, and yellow, so he was collecting data in all parts of Mexico, and you just see these differences, right? Like red. So if anyone ever been down to this area in Mexico? When you go down there, it's very indigenous, right? Lots of indigenous peoples. So this is like kind of Oaxaca down here, and you come in, but then you have the yellow. This was a slave port. Check. Man, I feel like I've lost you. I'm like trying to talk over you. Can you just give me a second? This is actually really. Here's the value. Someone says they're Mexican. It's like, where are you from in Mexico? Like, what's your genetic admixture, right? These are slave ports here. So you're going to have lots of black people. You're going to have like a larger than average black population. And when you take DNA out of people, right, you could look at their DNA, you analyze their DNA, they're going to have much more African in their admixture. Here, red is indigenous and blue is European. And so, we just see like how different it is all over. That's how the whole world is. Just like the previous slide when I showed you the percentage of white blood in people of African ancestry in the United States. It's cool, right? So just think about and enjoy life, and I'll see you on Tuesday.